Okay, so hello everybody. So welcome to the online events. It is organized by the New Bauhaus Festival from Brussels. And we will delve today into the world of the green rooftop from Munich in Germany, and how it can be also a place to be sustainable. So today I'm really happy to introduce you to two collaborators which are creating these events, which are Was That Green and also Roofscapes Studio. So allow me also to take the opportunity to introduce myself, as I represent the Was That Green network. So I'm Fanny, and I'm a urban planner and PhD candidate based in Krakow in Poland. And with Was That Green that we created less than a year ago, we bring together passionate practitioners like myself from various backgrounds. So urban planners, architects, engineers, biologists, so researchers, but not only. Also practitioners and people just interested in making city greener and more blossoming and more livable. So through our community, Was That Green provide a platform where enthusiasts can exchange and share knowledge about green cities. So cities that can be like big metropolitan areas, but also small cities. Additionally, Was That Green features a blog where we share articles on various topics, and also a podcast that I actually host. We showcase in the podcast real life green projects around the world. And now we are expanding our horizon into events. So we are already organizing online events with our community. But this event is our first ever on-site event. So I'm really excited that you are present now to witness our first sparks. So I'm really glad. This event is also organized by the Roofscapes Studio, which is a startup based in France, in Paris. And this startup has the goal to transform rooftop into a green oasis. So Roofscape Studio puts on the scene rooftop just for not keeping rain out, but also to showcase how they can be a hub for biodiversity, for energy saving, and also for creating social ties. So we invite you to check out the websites of Was That Green and also Roofscapes. So yeah, welcome everyone for the discussion that will be featuring scientists, green roof producers, and local residents from Munich in Germany. So don't hesitate also to put questions in the chat if you have, and we will try to address them at the end of the discussion.
At the beginning, we will discuss today the future of our rooftops, and we want to introduce our speakers today. Thank you so much for being able to join the discussion and be here today. So I would love to present Markus Elsbecker, who is basically here, please. Markus joined Knauf installation company that is international building materials company in 2013. And for 20 years, he had accumulated a leadership experience with a very broad variety of roles, starting from product management, marketing, customer service, corporate development, and led of a strategic business unit. And please applause, starting from this month, Markus started to lead the Green Solution business unit at Knauf Insulation. Thank you. Our second speaker is Wolfgang Weißer, Professor Wolfgang Weißer. Please he's a biologist and holds the chair in terrestrial ecology and Technical University of Munich. And we are basically colleagues as we are all together doing the research all together. Wolfgang worked extensively on land use effects on biodiversity and insect ecology, and together with his colleague Thomas Haug, he developed the method of animal-aided design, so we will learn today about that more, in order to bridge the gap between the conservation and landscape architecture. And since 2021, he is also taking part in the European-funded project Ecolops to introduce technologies for transforming architecture into multi-species living spaces. So more biodiversity in the hands of Wolfgang. And last but not least, Andreas Rockinger. Here. Andreas has been planning, organizing, and managing projects relating to all aspects of open space planning for 20 years. He is leading the studio of Rockinger Landscape Architecture, and he also a consultant for the Energy Efficiency and Sustainability Center of the Bavarian Chamber of Architects. He is an honorary lecturer on the topics of sustainable landscape architecture and also communication and landscape architecture. Moreover, he himself has an experience as a housing cooperative resident and as a participant of building group. Thank you. And I would love to invite Markus firstly to give a presentation.
First of all, welcome. Really great for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Markus. I'm with Knauf Insulation now for 11 years. And I just joined the Green Roof Systems business unit a few weeks ago. Before that, I was very much in energy efficiency, making sure or that with insulation material that we save energy, which helps our environment. First of all, Knauf is a huge corporation, and we are worldwide active in a lot of different ways. And one of the areas they produce is, or one of the building materials they're producing is insulation. And you might wonder, how does a building material manufacturer actually come to green solutions, and what is the fit there? And what we found out is that actually rock mineral wool, one of the things what we produce, one of the products we produce, is actually a really good substrate for plants to grow into and to hold water. And so if you, I don't know, who of you has an aquarium? Nobody? Okay, one person. When you buy aquarium plants, they are always in a little spongy little thing at the bottom, and you have to take all the little spongy thing off. And that is actually rock mineral wool. And what we realized that when we have insulation material, we need to put binder into it in order to get some technical properties. But if we take the binder out of it, it's actually a really good material for plants to grow into. And you can imagine it like a sponge. There's a lot of air in it, so the water can be actually restored. And there's also space for the roots to grow into the rock mineral wool, which gives then enough space for the plant to grow and to give the water. And that's where we came up with basically 4 product ranges. The first product range is the green roof. That's what we saw on the top here as well, where the plants actually grow like all different vegetations you can put on top of that. The second product area is the green walls, which means you can actually put little pockets and then plant plants into the wall, and then you have a computer on the back of it, which makes sure that the plants always have enough water. The third space is the landscaping, which means you can put it underneath like parks and stuff like that. So once there's a lot of water coming, rain falling down, it's actually hold a lot longer in this in the earth and in the surface. And then the last thing, which has nothing to do that much with the green solution, but we realized that it's also something very, very important, especially for green roofs, is the safety and safety systems. Because yeah, we had a lot of fences up there, and we realized that if we want to sell our green roofs, we need to make sure that the people who are on top of it, they need to be safe, and that's why we also put safety systems. So in total, there are 4 product ranges within the green solution. And this business unit is completely new or very fresh for the Knauf insulation business. We are only about 10 years ago, we started with that business. It's small, it's growing at the moment. And we're trying to bring more green roofs into Europe. One of the reasons why Knauf said that they want to invest in that area is because they realize that the trends, if we look at the urban trends, that they actually move more and more people into the city. And we know, and you asked the question beforehand about urban heating effect, that this is going to be making us a lot more suffer as humans when we are in the city, because it's getting hotter and hotter and it's uncomfortable. And so we realized that this is something, a market where we can bring a benefit in order to make it more easy to live and to make it more comfortable. And also what we saw is that when people are getting into the city, we have more air pollution, and because there's more happening, and plants are actually taking that in and cleaning the air for us. And because we have the green roll, our rock mineral wool substrate in there, we can actually hold water a lot better than just normal earth, which means when heavy rain falls, the drainage into the sewage is a lot slower in comparison to just earth, or if you have concrete, when you just get then the floodings on the streets. And then the last piece is obviously the urban heat island effect. What we see is that it's getting a lot more hot in the cities than it's getting outside. I'm born in Munich, so I know how hot it can get and how much hotter it was, or is it today, in comparison to the past. And this is something we want to tackle with this. And this is actually something which really convinced me why this is a good product solution. If there's no green within the cities, the surface can be up to 60 to 80 degrees high, and that makes it really uncomfortable. You can nearly burn your hands on that. But if you put the same space and you have it green around it, and you said it before, and with the trees very nicely as well, you know, then the whole area is not going to be as hot as if there's no green. And this is where we can contribute in order to make it more livable and better space. And in total, we see with these product solutions a host of different benefits which we can bring to the table. And overall, the water retention is one of the biggest ones where we see the biggest effect of our business solution or product solution. And one other thing, what we found out as well, is if you think about solar panels, and you saw them at the back of the roof as well, if you have no green roof underneath the solar panel, you lose around 5 to 15% of efficiency in the summer, because the solar panels are getting too hot. And so the combination out of solar energy and green roof together is actually the optimum solution in order to get the maximum out and be more sustainable in buildings. And so overall, all these solutions are really built in order to make, a better well-being, be more comfortable in the way we live, and have a positive contribution. So I hope I'm in the time. I forgot my last slide. Maybe this is the future and how cities could look like.
Thank you so much. We don't want that our hands will be burnt. So I would love to ask, within your perspective, what, in one word, you will say, what is the future of the green roofs?
Bright.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I would love to invite Wolfgang Weißer, please, to tell us what is exactly animal-aided design and how to look like the roofs with biodiversity aspects.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm an animal ecologist, so I'm very interested in biodiversity, in particular animals, and how we can help them to live in the city so that we have more human-nature interactions. And green roofs, as was said before, are now becoming more and more common. Originally, they were mainly for aesthetic reasons. Now they have more and more functions. But what is unclear at the moment is whether these green roofs are really helping biodiversity, in particular animal biodiversity. And this is because in summer, a roof is really hot and dry, particularly the soil. And for example, many insect species, they have a larval stage or pupal stage where they are in the soil. And in winter, they're very cold and dry. So it's a very hostile environment. And they differ in height and size and age and plant composition management. So I think it's a task for the future to understand better what kind of green roofs are also good for biodiversity. We don't actually know so much about it. This is just this is one review that shows that generally a green roof has more insects than if the roof is not green. Not very surprising. And what is also very clear is that a green roof normally has much less biodiversity than the soil next to it. Yeah. So the green roofs are in between no biodiversity and a lot of biodiversity, but where they are, I think that depends a lot on how we design them. So I came into contact with green roofs because of our research project on animal-aided design. Very briefly, it's the idea is to bring animals into landscape architecture, into open space design. It's a methodology to improve urban design, but also to create habitat for target species. And it's very simple. The idea, you make the animal an integral part of the design. And you do this by choosing your target species at the beginning of the planning process. You identify what the animal needs. We call this critical factors in the animal life cycle. And then you let the animal inspire the design. So the designer knows what the animal needs. The designer can make a good design. And this is why we call it animal-aided design, like computer-aided design. So we say the design even becomes better. So we started 2016 and then we published papers, but then people said, oh, you have to build something. Otherwise, we don't believe you. And this is why we are more and more into praxis projects. So the general design cycle is like this. You start in the analysis of draft phase by choosing target species. You then, in the detailed planning and design phase, that's a typical planning cycle. You then really need design solutions that fit the animal, but also fit the humans. And then you have to construct it and see if it works. And our first project is here in the Brandstraße in Leim, where it's a typical densification project where you see the news part. There was a meadow and where people had their dogs and there were hedgehogs, but then it was a very nice space to densify it. And importantly, there was also an underground garage, and this means all the old trees had to go. So I congratulate you for keeping those trees, because if you look out of the window, all the green volume you see is the old trees. Like an old tree, a 100-year-old tree has more than 1,000 times as many leaves as a small tree. And food is not just quality, it's also quantity. So if you want to have insects that feed birds, you need a lot of greenery to support them. This is why I think old trees are so important. But here we had very little old trees. We had 4 target species: hedgehog, house sparrow, green woodpecker, and pipistrelle bats. And then we implemented a number of measures. I just go quickly through it because I really want to talk about the green roofs. So we had, for example, nesting hibernation sites. This is also connected to old trees for many species. But there you can put up boxes, bed boxes. We have a woodpecker lantern. We have a hedgehog drawer. So you can have these ready-made solutions. We look what it is. Then this is for the woodpeckers. We have a hedgehog drawer so that the hedgehog has some space to stay over during the day. This plus some heaps of leaves. And then we come to the green roof. So we had a number of measures, but the real challenge was really the getting food, getting plants for the the animals, and because on the ground it's also very dense, there's just not enough space. The fire brigade needs a little bit of space, the cars need to park, yeah, you have to have a footpath, and there's a playground. So in the end you end up with very, very little space for plants. And this is why we thought, well, how about a green roof? And the green roof was already, so we have a planting plan where we have plants, say, for the house sparling, so for the house sparrow. And then we were trying to get a green roof that is producing a lot of insects, but we could find very little evidence that this actually works. And there were we had a 10-centimeter green roof, so not very intensive, but also not very shallow. But the question was, how can you maybe increase the insect diversity in it? And because I'm an experimental biologist, I say if you don't know the right answer, you have to test it out. So what we were lucky to do together with the GEWOFAG is to do an experiment on the green roof where we have plots where we modified the green roof. So we have the standard homogeneous green roof in the left, and then we did two things. One is that because we couldn't just make the 20-centimeter substrate depth was too heavy, we said, okay, maybe we do a heterogeneous, that we put from one side 5 centimeter to the other side, so that we have on the one side 5 centimeter, on the other 15 centimeters. And then in addition, we add some elements that also help to keep water a little bit and give insects some hiding sites. So we have like dead wood, we have some stones, or we have like a barrier in the soil where underneath it might be a bit wetter. And this was in a nicely randomized design. And what you see with the bare eye, and I was there just before, this is the 15-centimeter bit. The plants go much, much higher than the 5-centimeter bit. It's maybe not surprising, but the effect is very striking. And just two results. And the first and the other result is also striking. If you go from 5 centimeters to 15 centimeters, which doesn't appear to be a lot, you have an enormous effect on the temperature. So this is the temperature directly in the roof surface. So the maximum temperature over the year was 60 degrees in the 5-centimeter roofs and only 40 degrees in the 15 centimeter. And more importantly, even in the winter, you see in the 5-centimeter, you go to minus 10, 11. And in the 15 centimeters, you hardly get freezing. So actually this little difference makes a lot of difference. This is why we hope that this will also allow more insects to overwinter. So we are still monitoring this. Just one other result, if you just look at plant height, and this actually also corresponds to plant biomass, you see a very strong effect of substrate depth. And this then also corresponds in the number of insects you find in the vegetation. So this is a small change, but it has a measurable effect, meaning that it can be easy to increase it, but it can also be very easy to do mistakes, or do it in a way that you don't have so many insects. And I think we generally need more research on this. I'm a researcher, I always say this, but I think we really need, for green roofs, we need more investigations, and I'm also very interested in basically investigating existing green roofs. We did last year a campaign in Ingolstadt with 75 green roofs that differ in age, in management, in soil depth, and height, size. There's lots of variables that people vary, and we need to understand what is the importance of these different variables. So you can imagine as the roof ages, yeah, you have more plants coming in. You also have more time for insects to settle. Like ants, for example, need 2 or 3 years before the colony is slightly bigger. And then management, of course, plays a big role. Unfortunately, most people don't remember what they did with their roofs. They don't remember what plants they put in. They don't remember the substrate. So this is quite challenging. So it's good to get into contact with them early on. And with this, I like to finish. So I think we need a little bit more research on how green roof properties allow animals, in particular insects, to survive. Small interventions may help, but we need to prove that they actually work. And so we will see if it works in the Brandstraße. And if you're more interested in the animal-aided design, there's a little film which you can get in the Mediathek and look at this. Thank you very much.
Wolfgang, thank you so much. For you, we have the same question. Wait a second. From your perspective, from the research perspective, what do you name as the future of the green roof in one word?
I would say very green.
Okay, thank you. We have a question.
Excuse me if it's a simple question, I'm not so deep into the biodiversity topic, but how do you measure actually the biodiversity in different roofs? Is it the temperature that shows you how biodiverse or how many insects can reside there, or do you have other factors?
We would directly measure the insects. So how many do we have? How many species? So, for example, in this particular case, the way you do is you take a modified leaf blower, you convert it into a leaf sucker, and then you have a little tent that you put on the vegetation, and then you suck out all the insects, and then in the lab you identify them either by eye or with molecular methods.
Thank you. So for our online audience, the question was, how do you measure the biodiversity? Sorry for that. Let's leave the questions for the last part of the discussion. And thank you so much. And I would love to invite you, Andreas, please, to give your presentation.
So hello from my side. I'm very proud to be here, and I'm not such a good fluent English speaker as the two before. So I've everything written old school on paper. Okay, thank you. So my name is Andreas Rocking. I'm a landscape architect in Munich, and I just want to speak about innovative rooftops and community interests. Okay. I'm here also for an organization. It's Energy Efficiency Sustainable Center of the Bavarian Chamber of Architects. In short, it's called BEN. And it's all about urban and building greening, sustainable and climate sensitive open space planning, climate change adaptation, climate change mitigation and material efficiency, about water sensible planning and construction and so on, and also about biodiversity. So these are the topics I want to speak about. And I will start with biodiversity. When we talk about innovative rooftop gardens, from my point of view, the first priority is to talk about how we can also provide habitats for animals and plants, just as Wolfgang Weiser said. On and around buildings and structures. For example, to compensate for the original habitat claimed by the measure, but also in general against the background of the rapid loss of diversity of species, individuals, and habitats. If we design building roofs as biodiversity promotion roofs, they can provide habitats that offer a high variety of habitat qualities, and thus an astonishingly high diversity of animals can also be found there. Most of them had been on roofs, not all. But just as an example. But also the second topic that comes to mind is the sensitive use of water. Water is a resource. We have enormous resource on the roof surface to retain water in order to actively use it for insulation, just what we heard before, for evaporation, and just as we met on the roof, for irrigation. For insulation, we store water under the greening structure, as you see on the left side. This replaces classic structural insulations. If we also store water openly, as you see on the right side, on the roof surface, the degree of evaporation also increases. In this way, we contribute to the reduction of the urban heat island effect and to the natural water cycle. In addition, water on roofs also provides a habitat for unexpected guests. And this is a water on a roof and in an official building. And yeah, this slide, sorry, this slide shows the integration of the use of water on roofs into an overall system of water-sensitive, climate change-friendly planning. So it's, when you look at the whole city, only one very effective and important piece for climate change-friendly planning. So my next topic would be about co-design and co-living. And I think Thomas Kremmer and Konrad Bucher said nearly everything what can be said about it, but I've prepared some slides for you. Intensely green roofs can also provide habitat for human inhabitants. It is precisely the common interests of a construction group, for example, the interests for living together, celebrating together, gardening together, and experiencing and enabling nature and diversity together. These are guarantors for the increasing spread and creation of innovative roofscapes, which promote both biodiversity and community. So this is about celebrating together. It's the same rooftop in the evening and then in the night with the celebration here. In particular, the aspect of planning and building together can significantly increase the quality of living together. As we can see in these photos, the community greenery, and just we heard it on the roof before, and also the equipment can produce a strong impetus for the social fabric of a new facility. So on the left side, this photo shows equipment which had been built by the inhabitants themselves. And on the right side, this is a typically rooftop, if it is on ground or it's on a very high roof, as we get it from the construction. So the rest is to be built by the inhabitants themselves. And that's what's about living together, working together, and then living together. Another aspect maybe not heard today about, but we saw it when we were on the roof, is the view. With these photos, I would like to show, tongue in cheek, another aspect of livable roofscapes, the fantastic view over the city with sun and moon. It's the same moment, for example, and up to the whole mountainside. And you can have it every day for leisure, at leisure. So the next point, maybe a bit technical, the combination of energy use and roof use. In the meantime, many convincible combinations of solar energy harvesting and habitat for humans and nature have been tested. There are no construction no-goes anymore. Research in construction technology now enables technically established and defect-free implementation. I know that are big words, but we can discuss it maybe afterwards. Okay, but just to finish and show, and then finally I would draw your attention to the fact that for years we have been greening roofs that are not necessarily associated with green roofs on top. But with great effort and very successfully, we greened also these roofs because they are in underground car parks. Or, for example, tunnel ceilings, that are also important fields of activity in designing livable urban environments. So that's about the center I come from, and we're talking about efficiency and sustainability, and it's about free of charge and neutral, just welcome to join us and to contact us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Andreas, for you will be the same question. Please share with us what, from your perspective, the future of the green roofs is, in one word.
Maybe it's a social future.
Thank you. I would love to invite our speakers on this beautiful sofa. Very cozy. And we will discuss what. And then we will discuss a little bit how to reach basically bright, green, and social rooftops. Julia.
All right, so this is the more discussion part of the evening. So we have a more informal setting. I will just turn the camera. Could you turn the camera so the people online can see us? And I will come and sit down next to you, actually. So we'll be moderating the two of us. We just organized first a set of two important topics that we wanted to discuss with you, which are important in the case of multifunctional green roofs. I think we heard also those topics earlier when we talked about people using the roof, and also we talked about filing complaints. And this is a topic we thought was important, was the conflict of interest. How do we balance the benefits for biodiversity and the benefits for people? How do we balance the benefits for insulation and the benefits for energy production? So how do we find the right equilibrium that for multifunctional green roofs that are not just green or just for people or just for production, but how do we combine everything? And I think you all mentioned this in your presentation, but we wanted to go a little bit further in this. So the first question is for Wolfgang Weisser. In the animal-aided design project, how did you integrate the wishes of the inhabitants? And do you see any conflicts between integrating biodiversity and people using the roofs and how they might interact with biodiversity?
Yeah, so thank you very much. So, of course, a lot of challenges. So you have very simple conflicts, like you don't want to have a bird nest above your window. But this is a very easy solution by making it not over the window, but next to the window. So I think most acceptance always are the solutions that are integrative, where both the animal and the human can benefit. So for example, all birds need a sand bath where they can dust their feathers against parasites, and you can combine this with a path for the humans. You can combine this with a skater way. You can, so there's many possibilities. So I think there's a lot of solutions. The problem we have is that we don't think of the animals, and when we start thinking about what to do for biodiversity at the end, when we are already finished with our design, then it's too late, and then it's too difficult. Then you have to put a nest box on the nice facade of the architects, which the architect doesn't like. And so I think a lot of conflicts are not really conflicts when you think about them from the beginning.
Thank you. So early planning and making sure that we think about it at the beginning. And about the beginning and the planning of the process, the next question was about how can we integrate the aspects of biodiversity in the production process at Knauf? How do you integrate biodiversity or in your thinking? Is it important, or are there other aspects that are more important? You talked mostly about the energy energy insulation. But are there also thinking some thoughts about integrating other benefits for the green roofs?
To be fair, when we talk about production, we don't think a lot about biodiversity. I have to admit that up front. Because we think a lot more what materials are we providing and how that material is contributing to the whole emission output as a total. And there it is actually that, yes, you need to do a lot of investment in energy in order to produce rock mineral wool or grass mineral wool, which is a very energy intensive production. That's no doubt about that. And there's a lot of effort to make that also green and to use energy which is renewable for the production process. So we do think a lot in that sense about of where's the energy coming from. The other aspect of energy efficiency in insulation material or in rock mineral wool, for example, the CO2 emission footprint, what you have in the production, it is amortized within 6 months in rock mineral wool, and it's amortized within 3 months of the installation in glass mineral wool, which means that once it is installed, when it is actually in the building, after 6 months, the investment in the emission is actually already compensated. And then for the next 50 years, it's saving energy of what you had to put in beforehand. And I think that's the biggest contribution, is that we are not polluting afterwards with heating our buildings, having it warm at home with our materials. And I think that's the biggest contribution, which then gives more space for biodiversity as well.
Thank you. Well, but maybe this sparks some ideas, Knauff, to consider new topics. Thank you. And the last question of this round, this topic, is for Andreas Rockinger. From the various projects that you have seen for your career, what would you say were the most requested green roof type? What is mostly the wish of the project initiators and the inhabitants? And do you see there also a conflict between those social roofs, which you talked about, and notably in the process of co-designing, and other benefits such as energy production or biodiversity habitat?
Okay, thank you. So maybe it belongs to the kind of project. A classical living project for cheap roof, cheap room and cheap living. They ask for extensive green on the roof. But more and more, this thing about the whole situation about costs, for example, in Munich, we know more and more organizations like the Wogeno comes to build a building space in Munich. So, and they bring this ecological point with them. So, and the people want to live in, for example, the Wogeno. They want to have the social aspect, they want to have the biodiversity aspect, and so they want to have all of it on their roofs. They want to have the solar power, the energy power, they want to have the biological, the biodiversity, and the social space. So I don't think that this conflict gets more and more, that I think it's getting less and less, because looking on the whole townscape, the problems are the roofs that are not green, and not the few ones we build because they will be green. That's, I think, it's not the question.
Well, thank you for showing that there is potential for combining multiple interests, and hopefully this will also evolve. And when we show examples of green roofs that combine both recreational uses, such as here as the cinema on the rooftop and gardens, maybe we can convince more people to also integrate green roofs in their projects, because they also have a benefit of a rooftop. This is something we really find interesting and motivated this evening. That's it for the first round of topics, and Lisa will take over and talk about challenges.
My favorite topic. I think we started a little bit to talk about the cost, and Volker, my question would be for you. Would you say that the biodiverse, specifically rooftops, are more costly, or it's not like really a challenge to implement that? Or maybe there are other challenges within this process. For example, you need to more special knowledge or long-term planning and so on. What would you name as a big challenge, the biggest challenge?
Well, first of all, I would like to say something slightly different, which is I think we should start thinking not about the rooftop and then the ground. I think we should see this more as a continuum. And I mean, there are some architectures where you really basically can climb up from the ground to the top. And I think such solutions, not like a hobbit house, but maybe maybe something more sophisticated, I think that can develop and will develop. And well, cost is always an issue, obviously. The measures that we implemented, for example, they cost basically nothing. So much less than a single space for a car in the underground. So if you plan it well and if everything has a multiple purpose, then I think the cost is not an issue. I think the biggest challenge I find is that you don't have to convince so much the people that they want it, but you have to convince the built environment professionals are not so used to it. And this will take some time, I think.
Thank you so much. 100% agree that we need to look at the urban greenery not only on one level, but within from the 3D dimension, and that's what you also teach us. I would love to ask Marcus. You just heard that doesn't like really cost so much to implement biodiverse friendly and insect friendly rooftops. Would that be potential interest for example, from your perspective or added value to the rooftops that you are producing, and maybe that could be included in your solutions or not?
I actually think they are included in the biodiversity, and I'd rather jump on the same train as you. I as well think it's not the question of cost. It's a lot more the question, what is it worth for us? And there's a lot more the question, what happens if we don't do it? And I think that's where a lot of the rethinking has to actually happen, that we do need that. We need to cool down. We need to reduce CO2 emission. And we overspent a lot in the last 20 years, 30, 50 years. And that's where we have to compensate now and make it a lot greener. And that's, there is a green, like you need to always look at the cost, and the building industry is looking very much at the cost, and they always haggle for the cheapest solution or on there. But I think we need to rethink a little bit here, and it's more about the question that we do things differently than in the past, and that we think, okay, what is the long-term effect? And one of the things where I like that as well, I like the scientific approach as well, that today we don't have the calculation what it actually means to photovoltaic and solar panels if we don't have a green roof underneath it. So we lose efficiency there. How much efficiency is it actually worth? Does it amortize the green roof if you put it underneath it? Does it feeling better in living space? How much do we are willing to spend for that? And if you are healthy, how much is that worth? And these questions, I think, is a lot more to ask. And then the question of cost is not that important anymore.
So maybe that's the start of the collaboration between TUM and Knauf. Andreas, thank you so much. Andreas, I wanted to ask still, I just think that innovation anyway means still additional costs. I just have a feeling, and also resources, but how to basically convince basically the people that we need such kind of combination between biodiverse and social green roofs.
Okay, I'm not sure if this question really appears often, because what Markus said, I think more and more people want to live in a new built house. They know about it, and just what he said is thinking about the costs not to do it, or to do just an asphalt roof. The people have in mind, and they know about it, and they are happy to find someone who's building a house with a very green roof about biodiversity, though they can be part of the change. People want to be part of the change and part of the transformation, and they want to be right and not wrong. And so I don't think that the inhabitants, the people want to live there, just discussing this problem and see it as a big challenge. I think they want to have it.
Add something to that. Because I just thought of another example, a discussion I had very shortly, a few days ago. It was a colleague of mine, and he has a flat roof at home. And his flat roof, he knows that the membranes, they're going to hold up the lifespan of about 10 to 15 years. And then after that, he has to renew it. And what we know, and we still have to prove it as well, unfortunately, but that's also something we have to research. If you put a green roof on top of it, it actually protects the membrane from the sunlight and the UV light, and it extends the life of the membrane. And he just told me how much money he has to spend in order to renew the membrane. And if he can double the life of the membrane, the cost of the green roof is not the issue anymore, because he's saving a lot more money in the long run. And I think that's it's more about the combination of building material, nature, and the design at the beginning of bringing the right combinations together, which is then actually being innovative and saving costs, because innovation not always has to cost money, in my world at least.
Thank you. I think the innovation maybe in this sense means to bring minds together, like the experts together, for example, from the science, from the local needs, to hear the local communities, well, what they want exactly, and basically for technology. So the one who can produce these things. Thank you. I wanted to ask, maybe someone of you has a particular question to someone on the chair, if you have any. Otherwise, we will open the questions for the people.
It's a question which concerns all three of us, I think, where we need to find an answer. Because I'm from economics, I studied economics, and I'm really wondering how we open up the economical engine of the industry in the big corporations on green roofs. Because if you look over the cities, if you look over production lines, there's so much space which we can make green, theoretically, but we need to get them somehow to invest in that space. And that is the biggest question which I have at the moment, of how we bring those people together. I'm not expecting an answer. So ideas.
Yeah, regulation. But I always think, and that's what I learn now, that I learn a little bit more about the world of landscape architecture and architecture. I think you have to work by examples. So now everybody knows this in Milano, Bosco Verticale, for example, which for an ecologist is not such a wonderful building, but it's certainly a very big landmark, and people now wanting to do. So I think we need more examples. So, and I think any good example will lead to others trying to have something similar.
Yes, I agree, and I think we've got to bring the examples together as a network, so everybody can find them, can look at them, can say, okay, I want to make the same, or I want to make it as good, I want to make it better, and they must be findable, maybe in the internet or so. And I had one more point, but I just trying to remember. Okay.
Marcus, do you have an answer for your question as well?
Sorry and thank you. It's about a regulation. The city of Munich has found more regulations about it. So they said, I don't know the numbers exactly, so and so much percent of the roofs has to be green, and of the facades has to be greened, and that will be new in the world. Okay, Munich does it, Paris does it, and so that will have also a great effect if the cities go forwards with examples and say we want it, and we just regulate it.
Sorry, maybe I was just in Singapore, and it's amazing how green it is. I mean, there you have to have I think twice the amount of the area that you take away for a building in green. So like they normally have between the 5th and the 7th floor, they have 2 stories, no apartments, but greens, trees growing, and then they have another 10 stories, and then again 2 stories with green. So a lot of things are possible if you want to.
I don't. It's
I will just maybe add on that. I think it should be a combination of different incentives that not only from the city perspective or from municipalities, but also from the bottom up. And I think also important the support from politicians. So I think when we all together will understand that we really need it, we will find a way how to do that.
I just want to add also to this. I think also a large topic, because you talked about new buildings, a large topic is existing buildings. And this is actually what's interesting. And I'll just do a little publicity about our partners in Paris, Roofscapes, who are trying to adapt existing Haussmannian structures in Paris, in the density center, and trying to adapt them and build green roofs on them. And I think this is also what you mentioned about getting interest of other larger companies to invest in those spaces. And this is why we believe multifunctional green roofs that offer space for the community, space for biodiversity, can then combine the interest of multiple people and then maybe make those more difficult projects happen also. So this is also something that we find very interesting. Let's open the floor now.
We will open the floor for the questions, but if possible, we'll start from our online participants, because there is already 5 questions. So we'll take one online, then one offline, one online, one offline. Yes, sure. Yeah. Fanny, do you hear us?
Yes, okay.
Good.
So for the online community, I already have a lot of questions coming, so it's great. I guess we will not have the time to answer everything, but the first question that I get that came pretty early was about what are the first steps about planning a green roof. So about consulting an engineer or installing specific things before developing a rooftop garden.
Someone want to respond?
Maybe if I understood the question right, there was a question about co-design and about that not only the architect has to plan the house, but the landscape architect and the water engineer and so on have to be in the team and have to say how much water, how much weight, how is the construction, how the static, and even the animal aided design elements in the facades and on the roof and so on. But it's not to be said from in Germany we have several phases that it's enough when they come into team into phase 2. No, they have to be in team just from the start. And it's if an architect started and worked with the 1 or 2 years, it's too late. You said it before. It's from the start, or the team has to be complete. If this was the question.
Fanny, does it answer the question?
Yes, I guess it answered the question posed by, I think it was Gina. Yeah, so I think it's fine.
Okay. Then we would love if you have some questions from here.
Obstacle that we at the moment I'm renovating a roof, and it's a roof of a huge industrial building in Feldkirchen, and whenever you walk there you see a lot of flat roofs, potential places, but the obstacle is that usually those roofs are designed in a very minimalistic way. It's metal roofs, and they can't carry enough. We did this Spardach. That's the maximum we could do because they simply cannot carry more than that. And that's the point where I think it would have been smarter in the future, change it by regulation so that they have to design with the green roof initially so that it can carry it later on. Yeah, that's the biggest obstacle at the moment. And you have to also calculate the maximum amount of water it can get. So yeah, you see a lot of potential, and the industrial buildings have the largest surface, roof surface, much more than the living houses. But this obstacle is a big challenge in making it greener. Yes.
I fully agree that this is a big obstacle, and that's one of the reasons. And it sounds a little bit like promotion now, but we do have a lightweight solution, and there are easy solutions. So you have to calculate just the total weight with 55 kilos per square meter, which is fully drenched with water, and we have one solution which has just the rock mineral, which is really light. Then you have some sedum on top of it, which is also very light. Not a lot of height, so unfortunately not a lot of height plans. It's very narrow, but it is a lightweight solution which helps these industrial buildings to do at least a little bit. And I think that's where we need to really look at what do we have in a renovation, and then bring the lightweight in there when it's fitting, or bring other roofs, like when we have a garden up here where you have big plants where you want to grow crops, then you have a different design. And I think you need to fit it to all of the different solutions.
Yeah, and I think you can also be innovative, and there's lots to be developed, I think. So for example, a wild bee can use sedum and so, but the wild bee often needs a breeding space, and often they go to the ground like 1 meter, or they need some dead wood. And of course you cannot have 1 meter of soil everywhere, but maybe there are some spaces in the building next to the pillars where you can actually make a little cavity, and you have a place for the nesting. So you don't have to have the whole green roof like this, but if you think of the life cycle of the animals and try to say, okay, that's what they need, and then you can maybe position it nicely that you find also a technical solution for this.
It's just one little additional thing. You talk about a project in Munich or in surrounding of Munich, then the snow weight is already calculated. So the things we are talking about are bringing not much more weight, because the snow is also is already calculated. And if the roof stands there for centuries, years, though it might not be that much more weight. Just, for example, this easy solution he talked about.
Yeah, but the obstacle is what happens when snow comes on top of it. For that week in a year.
Yes, but maybe you ask your static engineer and you ask him the maximum you can put on, and then you ask him again, and maybe then it will be better after a few questions.
We cannot stand there with 5 people at the same time, but we do, and nothing happens. But on the paper, we're not allowed.
That's the point. And just as Wolfgang Weiser said, do additional things with additional constructions, maybe just 10% of the roof, which can carry more weight.
Thank you very much. For the ones who were online who didn't hear, the last part was about the snow topic, which is a big topic in Munich. Might be some connecting from somewhere else in Europe. And the question, how do we deal with those loads, and on top the loads that are necessary for green roofs? We will take one more question online and then a question in the room. Fanny, do you have another question for us?
Yes, I have one, more than one question actually, so it's gonna be hard to select, but let's follow in terms of the timeline. So the second question was asked by Meda, and he's asking if encouraging corporates to enter the rooftop developments could benefit the rooftop and us, as they have economic benefits, and also bring more social awareness.
I think we addressed that a little bit, but maybe Markus, you would like to add something about the benefits of incorporating larger corporates, of involving larger corporates in green roof production to mainstream them. Could you repeat the question, Fanny?
You actually repeated pretty well, but they were asking, depending on the economic benefit and social awareness benefit that corporate bring, is it really necessary to encourage them to enter the rooftop developments?
I think it is, because yes, I think it's obvious why we need more green roofs and why it's such beneficial to us humans, and also to all the animals or all the inhabitants. But I see there's still some resistance to invest in a large scale of what we actually would need in order to reduce our CO2 emission, and unlocking that potential that they see that capturing CO2 emission and getting a better footprint, a better CO2 footprint, could be one way of unlocking it. But the question is how, and then we get very quickly into the banking sector, which makes it even more complicated. But it's a huge topic. I don't know.
Thank you for opening this huge topic. Maybe we'll organize another evening on how finance can improve green roofs. Let's take another question from the room, maybe a question from the back. I think there was a question in the back. Oh, okay. Then a question here. I will give you them.
I've got a question about the Knauf systems, and if you're looking into sort of a circular reuse, because you mentioned 50 years as a life cycle for the systems. Is there currently a way or thoughts about reusing like maybe mineral wool from demolition sites around Munich or in general? Is it even
the topics is recycling is a huge topic within the whole group, actually, because the the investment you have to do in order to get the raw material is a lot higher as if you would take it back. But the industry in the recycling and circular economy is not developed yet. And that's one of the biggest issue. And the other thing is, if you take demolition waste back, it's most of the times contaminated with other materials. So to actually bring that apart makes it really difficult. There's several things we are looking into at the moment of how we can do that, how we collect it at the construction site, bring it back into the production, and then reuse the raw material. But it's still too early to really say, like, this is the one solution. We look at several solutions. The one thing, what happened in the last, I don't know, many decades in the building industry, and it has nothing to do with Knauf, everybody did that we just put it into landfill, and that's not the future anymore. So everybody's looking at the moment of how to reuse the material and bringing that back. And one of the things in green roofs, what we learned as well in horticulture, for example, is that we take that the plants, when they grew in it and they were actually put into roofs, or the crops were like taken and brought for our food, that we take that back, which makes actually a good base for other soil for substrate on green roofs. That's something we are thinking about at the moment as well, and looking about or testing if there's potentials in there. So there are efforts, but we are not at a ready solution yet.
All right. I think that's it for our round of questions. We would like to also give you a chance to interact in a more informal way, come to the speakers, ask more, come to our wonderful guests who gave us a tour of the garden in case you have more questions on how to produce your own vegetables on your garden. We would like to thank you so much for coming here. It's really, really beautiful that you came, and for all the ones online who joined. So this was a project, an event that was in the context of the new European Bauhaus, which is a festival happening in Brussels. It happened last week, actually, and they have events all around Europe. So this project was also shown in Brussels and shared with all the partners in Europe. So we're very thankful for their support. We're also thankful for Roofscapes, who were the partner on this project, and they also organized some roof days in Paris in the summer, where they open up some rooftops and they give tours to also show the potential to the inhabitants of Paris, what could happen on their roof. So there will be more coming. And as Lisa earlier said, we will also be at the Urban Future Conference in Rotterdam in the summer, hosting a session about multidisciplinarity and how can we get more actors to collaborate, to plan those very complicated, or to come together to solve those complicated questions. So thank you so much for all the speakers for coming, and especially to Thomas Kremmer, who let us come into this room and enjoy the facilities here and see the beautiful rooftop. Thank you so much.